Breaking news in the CBS Sports HQ. The final head coaching vacancy in the NFL has reportedly been filled. The Saints are elevating defensive coordinator Dennis Allen to become their next head coach. Allen served in an interim role earlier this season when Sean Payton was out with COVID. All right, let's get our guys in the mix. Two members of the Pick Six pod. We say hello to Ryan Wilson and Will Brinson from our Marina Del Rey set out in L.A. Gentlemen, plenty of coaching news coming down here on Monday. The last vacancy filled, and now the work is there to be done for Allen. What's top of the to-do list here, Will, as you look at what the Saints need to do to get this back on the winning track?
Yeah, nice of the NFL to wrap up this coaching season in 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, why not stretch it out for another month, guys? Let's go wrap it up, B. Yeah, I think look at the Saints, and I think the part of the thing with bringing elevating Dennis Allen to the primary position is that you now have a coach who understands what the front office does, how the front office works, and what the front office needs to do. They got $70 million over the cap. Mickey Loomis needs to bring out his magic bag of beans and get them underneath the cap. You got to figure out what you're going to do in terms of cuts that need to be made. Roster decisions, restructuring. There's a ton of those likely to happen. And then you also have to figure out who's going to be the quarterback. I think the continuity with Pete Carmichael, who we presume will still be the offensive coordinator, is a big plus. But they've got to figure out exactly who's going to be the guy under center for this new regime and how that's going to operate.
Ryan, if you look at this, how good of a job is the Saints' job among the 8 jobs that were open?
Well, Sean Payton would tell you it was a really good job before he decided to step away for a bit. And the other part, EK, of course, is the quarterback situation. Jameis Winston tore his ACL, so they lost him in the middle of the year. Ian Book was a rookie who didn't play well in the one start. Not a surprise there. Trevor Siemian struggled as a backup when he had to start, and we understand that. And, of course, Taysom Hill doesn't appear to be the long-term answer. That said, the offensive line is one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. The defense is one of the best defenses in the NFL. Dennis Allen certainly takes credit for that. But as Brinson just mentioned, there are the salary cap issues. So, EK, it starts with the quarterback position, and Dennis Allen's going to have to sort that out. He and Mickey Loomis and presumably Pete Carmichael. And if you can figure that out, and that's a big if, even if that means bringing Jameis back, you're in the division where you have a chance to compete because Tom Brady has retired, at least for now. The Falcons have Matt Ryan and not much else, and then you have to go from there. So I think it's a pretty good job in terms of the length of things compared to the other teams. I would put it probably top 3 or 4.
Gentlemen, I think it's interesting that here on Monday we see 2 internal hires filling these final 2 head coaching vacancies. Does that speak to this group of guys that was out there being considered for these jobs? Eric Bieniemy, Byron Leftwich, you got a guy like Aaron Glenn, other names that have come around in these coaching cycles, and the last 2 teams elect to go within. What does that tell you, Will?
Yeah, I don't know if it speaks to the guys out there quite so much as it speaks to the last 2 jobs, right? The Houston Texans, as we talked about on the Pick Six podcast show and on the actual podcast episode earlier today, probably just wish they could have rebooted, like gotten in the DeLorean and gone back a couple of weeks and just not fired David Culley with the way that this all unfolded in this offseason. And then with the Saints, again, I think because you're talking about a last minute really replacement of Sean Payton, right, who stepped away not unexpectedly, but we really only had like a week's notice that this was going to happen. It makes sense to have a lot of continuity there in New Orleans, somebody who understands the system. And by the way, one secret big win for the Saints, Jeff Ireland didn't get hired for any of the GM jobs out there. I think that's pretty huge for New Orleans because he has the rep with the Dez Bryant stuff from Miami, but he has done a great job in helping and working with Sean Payton over the last few years and developing talent. That 2017 vaunted class there. But for me, Musso, I would say it speaks more to the jobs themselves than the candidates who are still remaining.
Ryan, if you're Dennis Allen, who's your quarterback?
Well, they have a pick near the middle of the first round, and they'll have to do some math on that as well. But I think if you're going to press me right now, not knowing how the quarterback draft situation is going to play out now that we're a few months away, I'm going with Jameis Winston. I need to re-sign him. We know that you can recover from ACL injuries and be completely healthy. Joe Burrow is the latest example of that, and we can't deny that Jameis Winston got better under Sean Payton. Now the question becomes, Sean Payton is gone. How does that affect Jameis Winston's progress in a post-Tampa Bay world? Also worth remembering, we have to figure out this Alvin Kamara situation and whether Mike Thomas comes back or not. So once that happens, we'll have a better idea of what's going on. But I'm taking Jameis Winston and the guy that I know in terms of his NFL capabilities, as opposed to a Matt Corral or a Kenny Pickett in that sense, and not knowing what they may look like in the NFL.
Ryan, I'll follow on that because there's so much value in this draft capital, and anytime you have a new head coach trying to put his fingerprints over a program, whether that's one that he's been a part of or a new one, it really makes a huge difference what they do with those picks. Where do you see the Saints going early?
Well, typically, Joe, I've had them targeting one of two positions: quarterback, because every team needs a quarterback when you don't have one, and you're not going to win any football games on a regular basis without one. And then also wide receiver. Again, Michael Thomas didn't play this year. We don't know what his plans are going to be long term. And this wide receiver class is incredibly deep, starting at the top, whether it's Traylon Burks out of Arkansas, Chris Olave, or his teammate Garrett Wilson out of Ohio State, or even Jameson Williams, their former teammate who transferred to Alabama and unfortunately tore his ACL. But that I still think he will be a first-round pick. And I've talked briefly about those quarterbacks. Matt Corral out of Ole Miss wasn't at the Senior Bowl last week because he wasn't eligible, but Kenny Pickett was there, Malik Willis was there, Carson Strong was there, Desmond Ridder was there. All those guys made cases for themselves to be in the conversation, but I think at this point in the middle of round one, we're talking about either a Corral or a Pickett or a Malik Willis. I think the best fit in terms of playing indoors in a fast offense and picking up the offense quickly is probably Kenny Pickett. You have the offensive line around you in that defense. But again, if you're going to press me, Joe, I would probably lean towards Jameis Winston and target another position, perhaps like wide receiver.
All right, well done, gentlemen. Certainly appreciate your thoughts. Dennis Allen is going to be the Saints head coach.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.